After becoming the first black man to earn his doctorate from Columbia University, Dr. Charles Drew began his work helping the United States and its allies win World War II. It was 1940. War was raging across Europe. German troops were performing these large-scale air raids through the night across British cities. Britain desperately needed blood for their wounded civilians and soldiers. This is when Dr. Charles Drew was tapped to lead the Blood for Britain program. Recruiting blood donors in a war-torn country was virtually impossible. And even if they were to find the donors, whole blood had to either be transfused immediately or shipped and stored in refrigeration, which was unrealistic. But Charles Drew had figured it out. Remember his dissertation, Banked Blood? In it, he outlined his discovery that plasma could be separated from the rest of the blood and then dried and stored without refrigeration. So it made it a lot easier to transport than whole blood. But this wasn't the only thing that made him so uniquely qualified for this position. In that same dissertation, he had designed floor plans to efficiently collect blood in what we now know as a donation center. He standardized processes to avoid contamination of the blood supply, even at large scales. Dr. Charles Drew knew blood collection and transfusion better than anyone, and he was ready to get the job done. Blood for Britain was a huge success, collecting about 5,000 liters of blood plasma from about 15,000 donors in just a few months. Dr. Charles Drew was then appointed assistant director of the first National Blood Center and tasked with producing a large number of dried plasma kits to be used on the front lines of the war efforts. To reach more donors, Dr. Charles Drew invented what we now call bloodmobiles, making it possible to collect blood without relying on a fixed donation center. The US and its allies now had a way to collect large amounts of life-saving blood to be used to keep its civilians and soldiers from dying. But there were problems back in the United States. A policy barred black donors from being able to donate blood. Now, after some pushback from Dr. Charles Drew and others, the policy was revised to allow black donors to donate. However, their donation would be segregated and labeled to ensure that white soldiers didn't receive blood from black donors. Imagine that. Dr. Charles Drew had essentially built this program from the ground up. He made it possible to collect and use blood at a large scale, and in result saved thousands of lives. Yet he wasn't allowed to participate in the practice as an equal. So he resigned, and he dedicated the rest of his life to training black medical students and fighting for their equality. He tragically passed away in a car accident at the age of 45 in 1950, having never been admitted to the American Medical Association because of his race. His name may not be in every history book, but without a doubt he was a great American. His work flows through every life that's saved by modern blood transfusion. This Black History Month, we honor Dr. Charles Drew and his legacy.